Hello, friends, and welcome back to Dare Me to Prosper. My name is Avery, and I'm your host, and this is episode 20, where we are talking about past lives. I'm going to tell you about some of my past lives. We're going to explore how past lives work and how to access them. So thank you so much for being here. This is going to be a really fun episode. This is also going to be possibly the most woo-woo kind of deep episode that we've done in the spiritual sense. This is one of those episodes that might challenge people depending on where you are in your spiritual journey. Because I know that some people listen because they're curious, but they're not necessarily with me, and that's totally okay. And some people are genuinely with me and wanting to learn more and exploring and all of that. If you are not here yet, that is okay. I am never coming onto this podcast to convince you that I'm right and you're wrong and that what I say is the only thing that's true or that it's absolutely true and I could never be wrong about anything. Absolutely not. Of course, always use your own discernment, your own intuition. I am not a guru. I am just a normal human soul like you, exploring and learning and sharing with you where I am. So that's all this is. But I understand that this might be a little bit deep and hard to grasp for some people, or maybe just way different than what you have believed in the past or what you were raised to believe. And I totally get and respect that. So if you think I'm nuts, if you think I'm off my rocker, that's totally fine. You absolutely can have that opinion. Because I also, 5-6 years ago, would have thought I was nuts. And I wouldn't have believed you if you would have told me that I would have been sitting here recording this podcast. So I get it, okay? But if you're here to learn and you want to evolve, I love this topic. I think it really just stretches our mind and concepts, and it's just really fun. Of course, if I didn't know anything about Christianity and you told me that there was a guy who died on a cross and he was coming back from the dead to save everybody from their sins, I also would have thought that was nuts. So it's all about perspective, right? It's all about what you were raised or what you kind of adopted as truth. That seems nuts to some people. Other views seem nuts to other people. It's really, we're all nuts and everything. Reality is insane. Universal laws are insane. The way things work really is crazy. And so I just want to challenge you to be open-minded and to think and really just sit with things. Use your own critical thinking and your own intuition to guide you to what resonates with you most. Okay, though, that's my spiel. Also, if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave a review. I appreciate it so very much. I love hearing from you guys. I love getting your feedback, and I just appreciate that you're here. I feel very grateful. So thank you again in advance for leaving a review. It means so much to me. Also, last week I touched on the fact that I was giving a trial run of free psychic readings before I launch it as a service on my website. And I just want to say, so far, I am so shocked, blown away, grateful, speechless of how I have been able to connect with you guys and how the messages are resonating. And it's just amazing. I just feel so honored and lucky to be able to even tap into that because I didn't really anticipate it being so, impactful and resonating so much. So to reiterate, I'm going to do just a couple more of those free readings before I do actually launch it as a service on my website. So if you would like to be one of those couple of people, all you have to do is email me at daremetoprosper@gmail.com. Send me a couple of questions maybe that have been on your heart that you've been wanting to tune into or ask spirit or your guides or a past loved one or whatever it might be. No question is off limits. Give me a little bit of background, your name, and I will meditate on those and email you back with a response. So there's a couple more of those spots left if you would like to do that. Okay, let's get into the episode. Past lives. Past lives, if you are not super familiar, of course, come with this idea of reincarnation. Reincarnation being that we have this eternal soul and we are reincarnating into our human bodies onto earth to live out our life, and then once we die, we go back to the soul and we do it all over again, right? So we are incarnating multiple times onto not only Earth, but other planets, other species, right? The universe is absolutely insanely large. I couldn't even pretend to know how many different options there are to reincarnate as. But for this episode, we're just going to focus on Earth and our human lives. So your past lives are other human experiences that your soul has had in different bodies, in different cultures, different eras, as different races, or even in other dimensions. Because as we've discussed before, Earth has been in 3D. We're going into a 5D dimension, a higher frequency. And who knows what the future holds for Earth beyond that. So there are just all sorts of different ways and perspectives that you can incarnate into to learn. Incarnating allows your soul to experience different lessons, growth, and evolution from all sorts of different angles. The point is to learn as much as we possibly can about ourselves as source, right? Like we're all this teeny tiny little piece of God, and we're all intricately connected together. And so it's kind of like we're all just holding hands and reincarnating, or all shifting perspectives and interacting with each other as we learn and we grow as this collective consciousness. But on Earth specifically, when we incarnate here, we agree to forget about all of these other lifetimes, these incarnations, with the purpose of really focusing on this lifetime. Because in our human bodies, with our human brains, we're like the toddlers of the universe, okay? Humans are not that developed. And I don't think that will come as a shock to anyone, right? We're not the brightest tools in the tool shed. We still, as a species, we really still struggle with hate and violence and crime and all of these things. And so we've got a long way to go, but every time that we reincarnate, we learn and we grow, and then we get to come out and go, okay, how did I do? How did I interact with these other souls? Did I learn the lessons I set out to learn? We talked about soul contracts in another episode, so go listen to that if you haven't already. That will give you an even better picture of, how all that works in terms of planning out your life. But we go through these cycles, right, to learn and to grow. And the reason it's important to learn and to maybe tap into your past lives in this particular lifetime is because all of your different lifetimes, your past lifetimes, your current and your future lifetimes, actually can influence your current emotions, patterns, talents, fears, and relationships in ways you might not even consciously realize, because all of those lives are connected to your soul, and that each life that you live leaves like an imprint on your soul that can impact you even when you're not realizing it. And we'll get into that more later, but just for example, like if you have like paranoia about something, or a phobia, say, about something that's just completely unexplained, like say you're terrified of water, you're terrified of swimming, you don't really have a reason why, nothing happened in your life that would make you afraid of it, but you just, for whatever reason, you are terrified to swim. That could be evidence of a past life where something did happen, where something traumatic did happen, and it left sort of an imprint on your soul, like a wound that hasn't been healed. And by recognizing that and tapping into that past life, you can actually heal that wound for this lifetime. Does that make sense? So it's just reminding you that you are so much bigger than this one lifetime. Not that we don't absolutely value this life, or that we don't take life seriously, or that we see it as just a blip, so it doesn't matter. We don't take life seriously. It's not that. We absolutely do value the current life that we're living. It's just that there's a much bigger picture when you back up. And so healing or understanding what has happened in your past lives can really free you from repeating different cycles, relationship cycles, personal cycles, and accelerating your soul's growth overall. So again, you have past lives, you have your current life, and you have future lives. So I want to give you a little bit of a visual that helps me in terms of how we're going to look at this, because it might get a little bit crazy when we start talking about how time works and things like that. So imagine that your soul is reading a series of books. Okay, so there's the first book, the second book, the third book, the fourth book. It could be up to 200 books. It really depends. But it's this giant series of earth books, right? From your soul's perspective, you have already lived the whole series. Every life you've ever lived, or ever will live is already written. It's already sitting on the shelf for you to read it. It's already complete. It's already whole. It's already known from your soul's perspective. But this is where it gets tricky. From your human perspective, you're only reading one book right now, page by page by page. So now that you're in your human perspective, now there's past, there's present, and there's future. When you back up and you go to your soul's perspective, it's like the series is just one big series and you read it all at once. You just look at the series and instantly you have the whole story, you have all the information. It doesn't have an order like it does when you're a human. Does that make sense? So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and this doesn't matter so much in terms of being able to understand your past lives, but this really helps me because I had a ton of questions when I first figured out about past lives. Like, well, wait a minute, if our past lives affect us and there's no linear time outside of Earth, what about our future lives? Why don't we talk about those and how those are affecting us? This is why. Because when you step onto Earth, you are only in one book. And so right here in our human perspective, we're more affected by our past lives because our future lives aren't quite finished. It's like we have the blueprint. They're coming. We kind of know what's happening. But since we haven't lived it yet, there's decisions that we haven't made that can still impact us. It's honestly, this is like Inception. Like my brain, as I'm trying to explain it, my brain fully doesn't understand it. But I'm going to give it to you to the best of my ability. Okay, so every book that you read is like a choose your own adventure book. Every lifetime, you have a blueprint, you have goals, you have plans. We talked about this again in the soul contract episode. But you have room to explore or to go off track or to make different choices in every single lifetime that you have. It's like a choose your own adventure. You're going to go this way, you're going to do that way. You're going to do it the easy way or you're going to do it the hard way, right? You have options. And every time you make those decisions, there's like a ripple effect that affects your other lives depending on what you experience and what you learn. So this book series is like a story with paths and twists and choices that create living, breathing experiences that is all kind of happening at once. But from our human perspective, we're going to see it as past, present, and future because, as you can clearly tell, our brains just cannot fathom non-linear time. It's very confusing. We chose to come and experience this linear time bubble on Earth because it deepens lessons through emotional impact, through cause and effect. Like the way that time works kind of gives us a more concentrated experience in able to learn. Like the environment that time gives us allows us to learn our lessons in a deeper, more impactful way as a human. Does that make sense? Okay, let's move on from that. But I just wanted to give you a visual of the book series, right? There's past books, there's present books, there's future books. And from our human perspective, we're somewhere in the middle, right, of all of these lives. But again, the whole point of this particular episode and learning about them is so that we can clear old wounds, so that we can kind of up level in our current life with whatever it is that we are struggling with, whatever obstacles we are trying to get past, whatever things we are learning. So I personally most clearly have tapped into two particular past lives that I want to share with you. It's really fascinating. They are totally different, and you'll see in a second. But I want to tell you about how I experienced them, what it looked like, and kind of what the lesson was, because that was, if anything, the most important part. So this happened, both of these, because I had booked a past life hypnosis session with a practitioner. Her name is Tracy Ventura. I found her first on TikTok. I've watched her on YouTube. You might have seen her or be familiar with her videos. I think she's got videos on YouTube, don't quote me, of some of her sessions with her clients where you can kind of see them. Basically, it's where this practitioner helps you step into a deep meditative state and is the kind of guide for you to kind of guide you into a place where you can tap into your higher self and you can ask questions from your higher self. You can access past lives from this deep meditative state. You can absolutely do this on your own. You do not have to have a practitioner to do this. However, for a lot of people, and I think for me included, having the practitioner and doing it that way first really helped me solidify kind of like, wow, I can do this. This is how I can do it on my own. But having the practitioner there really helped me kind of get to that deep level and really validate it for the first time. Does that make sense? I hope that's not confusing, but it just like legitimized it the first time, and it felt really real. And I was just having somebody who was used to doing that walk with me through it for the first time was very helpful, is what I'm trying to say. I will leave her contact information in the show notes if anybody else is interested in working with her. I highly recommend her. Life-changing. Loved it. Anyways, when you book a session with her, part of preparing for working with her is practicing meditation every single day leading up to your appointment so that you are used to getting into that meditative headspace, so that you're used to getting yourself into deep meditation, because that is a vital part of being able to tap into your own higher self, your own guidance, practicing being able to not only get there, but also just trusting the information or the messages that come through. Half of it's just being able to trust it, because I think for a lot of people, you probably are receiving information or messages or whatever, visuals, but you don't trust them because it can be difficult to specify what is from, say, like a spiritual source and what is just your own thoughts. And practicing meditation is how you learn how to decipher those things. And so, again, practicing meditation every single day and getting into that state was part of building up to this appointment. So I was doing that for weeks, prepping for this appointment, going into these deep meditations. One of the meditations that I did was a past life meditation. Now, she doesn't say you have to do this. I just wanted to do it. As I was practicing, I was, doing all sorts of different meditations, and I decided I'm going to do this guided meditation for a past life and see if I can get anything, see what comes up. So I did. It was literally just a YouTube, free past life regression meditation. So I did this meditation. And when I tell you, I have never had such a strong visual experience as I did. Well, I did in the session with her. But again, in this specific past life meditation, it was so clear. It was so visual. And I'm a visual person. I do tend to see images pretty clearly in my mind. But this was just beyond. It was clearer than any dream I've ever had. It was just so visceral. And so let me tell you about it, okay? So I knew from watching these videos of people doing past life regressions that what a lot of the practitioners tend to do is take you through multiple important parts of a past life. So they might say, okay, let's set the intention to go to a really impactful, important moment in this past life. And you go to that moment. And then when you leave that moment, you set the intention, okay, now we're going to go to a different, more impactful or very impactful moment of this life. And then you go to that moment. And then you say, okay, let's go to the last day of this life. And it's just kind of a way of setting the intention of not just getting kind of a glimpse of what the life was about, but kind of reliving some of those really impactful moments. Right? Because again, there is no time. So you can tap in to any future or past moment at any given time and sort of witness it and relive it in that meditative space. You're not actively living it and participating in it, but you can go observe it from that very real, visceral place. This is so hard to explain. I didn't think it would be difficult. I'm having a really hard time finding the right words, but stick with me. Anyways, that is what I did when I went into this meditation. The guided meditation did not guide me here. That is just what I intended to do in my mind. So basically, once I got into this deep meditative state, I was setting the intention that I wanted to go to a very impactful moment in this past life. And so I'm looking down. I have the intention basically that I'm in my human body. I look down and I'm just going to start kind of looking around to sort of gather where am I? Who am I? What's happening? And start gathering information about who this person is and what sort of life I'm living. And so immediately in this meditation, I'm looking down at my feet and I see these black, long, narrow feet. It looked very odd, like not shoes that you would typically see today. And I was like, okay, all right, I don't know what that is. I look up kind of at my body. I'm looking at what I'm wearing and I recognize, and some of it I visually see and some of it is just like a knowing, because that's what I tend to, for me personally, I tend to have like a clear cognizance where I'm just like, oh, I just understand. And so I look at my body and I notice that I'm male and that I have a long black braid. And instantly I recognize that I'm a Native American man. And I just want to say before I get into this that I do not have any sort of current claim in this lifetime to the Native American heritage or culture or anything like that. This is just what I saw. And so I'm sharing this with you. But I understood in that moment that I was a Native American man. I also saw that I was dressed just in like regular clothing, like just simple pants, a simple like button shirt. It wasn't like anything that you might recognize as Native American clothing or anything tribal or anything like that. It was very more European or American, I would say. So at that point, I look up and I look around and I recognize that I'm on a path in a forest. And I also recognize that I have something in my hand. And I look down and I'm holding a rope that is connected to this horse. So there's a horse next to me. I'm holding a rope, kind of walking through the forest, guiding this horse. But I'm not alone. I notice that I'm in a group of 3 or 4 people on horses. I'm not on a horse. I'm walking. I'm holding this rope attached to a horse. There's 3 or 4 people around me. They are on horses. So we're in this group together. They are also Native American. I want to say there was like 2 or 3 men and 1 woman specifically. And all of them were dressed in what I would call European or American clothing, not like tribal clothing at all. And instantly, kind of the way that these meditations work for me personally is I would have the thought and then immediately have the knowing. So I thought, what's going on here? And immediately what I understood was, okay, this woman, just stick with me, guys. If you've never done this, it's a wild experience. This woman, her husband had died, and I was in charge of escorting her to her brother's house. And that was just what I understood in this moment. This woman's husband had died, and now she was being transported to her brother's house, and I was in charge of like helping her get there safely, but there was a couple other men with me helping me with this mission. I was walking, everybody else was on horses, okay? So we're walking through this path in the forest. And this is when I start to understand the time period, because as we're walking through this forest, we come upon a group of, 6 or 7 soldiers. And specifically, they look like red coat soldiers. Like they had that 1700s red coat soldier attire. And instantly, I recognize that this is not good, that this is, what we don't want. This is the reason why we are walking as a group. My job is to protect this woman. And instantly I get a red flag when these soldiers who are also on horseback kind of are coming up and they're going the opposite way of us on this path. So we get to these soldiers, and in this meditation, I don't necessarily hear words or talking. I just kind of get images and visuals and I understand what's happening. So essentially, and this is awful, and all I can say is this is what I got, this is what I received, and I'm just giving it to you as it was. In the meditation, what I understood happening was that they kind of stopped us. They were asking us questions about where we were going and what we were doing, and we're trying to give answers and be respectful. And what ended up happening was they took this woman and they abused her without getting into too much. I don't want the podcast to be flagged for anything. I'm not sure if it would be, but you can use your imagination. She was abused while myself and these other men were kind of held back. And in that moment, I could feel the emotions. I'm in this meditation, understanding what's happening, and I can feel the emotions of being this man. And it's such a wild experience. But what I felt was obviously horrible. I felt in that moment as this man, I failed. It was my job to protect this woman. I was the leader. I was the one guiding them through this experience, and I completely failed. And I felt helpless, and I felt horrible. And I just remember that was kind of the primary lesson and emotion, was just that I was sitting there helpless to do anything, and I failed, and I couldn't be the protector and the leader that I was trying to be. So at that moment I stopped and I was like, okay, I understand. I'm like, and I think this was like months and months ago, but I'm pretty sure that, eventually, like, I don't think we were killed or anything or I guess I know we weren't killed because I continue in this life, but I think, eventually it was just like they abused us, they took something for themselves, and then we went on our way, but it was obviously a horrible experience. At that point, I set the intention, all right, let me move on to the next moment of this life. And instantly I recognize I'm in a large jail cell. And I look around, and this jail cell's probably, it was large for a jail cell, but it was like the size of maybe like a large bathroom or a really small bedroom, like big enough for a couple of people. And in this jail cell with me was a woman and a child, a little boy. And instantly, again, just cognitively, I understand what's happening. I'm not hearing words or conversations being spoken, but I understand in that moment what had happened was that I was responsible for us being in this jail cell, and that this was my wife and my son. And together we were in this jail cell because I had stolen bread. Again, this is just what I got. I had stolen bread. And for that, my entire family was jailed and put in this room. And I don't even know what happened after that or if we got out. But again, what came through, because this is the point, right? This was my intention going in, was to figure out the lessons and what I needed to learn. So what came through emotionally, because again, instantly, as soon as I understood what was going on, I also understood and felt the emotions that accompanied that situation. And so instantly I understood the feeling. I was feeling again like I failed. It was my job to protect my family, to provide for my family, and I had failed. I couldn't do what I was trying to do, protect them, provide for them, be the man, be the leader. I couldn't do it. I failed. And here we are now in this jail cell because of me. And it was just this awful feeling of not being able to do what I wanted to do so badly. And that was it. There's just that recognition in that moment. So then I'm like, okay, let me go to the last life, or the last day of this lifetime. Let me move forward. I'm going to go to the last day of this lifetime. What does that look like? What are the feelings that I feel after living this whole life? Where do I go from here? It was very odd. Where I saw myself it was like I was on a cot. And I was in this giant tent, and immediately what I recognized it as was, I don't know if you've ever seen in like movies where, it's a war, there's a war and it's 1700s, 1800s, whatever, an old war. And they have these big tents where all these soldiers are kind of being attended to by nurses or by people after being wounded in battle. So it was like that. And I don't know, I didn't necessarily see maybe what my wound was or what was wrong with me. All I understood in the moment was I saw myself as this Native American man on a cot in this large tent surrounded by all these other cots and these nurses or people going around tending to all of these people. But it was not a tent of Native Americans. It was a tent of like white men, white soldiers. And I was kind of the loner, being a Native American man, but I understood that we had all fought in some sort of battle. So I don't know. I mean, given the timing and context clues, I'm like, okay, maybe this was the Revolutionary War, possibly, and maybe I had agreed to help, fight. I didn't necessarily get that. I'm just kind of putting context clues together based on other things that I saw. But I understood that we had all fought in some sort of battle and that I was wounded and that I was dying. And so I was on this cot, again, in this large tent. And that really, I was alone. I didn't feel like I had family around me or anybody that I knew, just that I was wounded in this tent, dying from having participated in this battle. And my emotions were really just kind of a culmination of the other things that I had felt. Like I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. I didn't get to protect the people that I was meant to protect. And that was just that now I was alone dying on this cot in this tent. And I felt a lot of guilt and shame and failure, really. And those were the main emotions coming out of this lifetime. And I very much kind of resonated with that male masculine energy of like wanting to be that leader and protector, because that's not my primary energy now in this lifetime in that body. And so it was really interesting to immediately sense that strong desire of wanting to lead and protect and provide and all of those things and feel like I utterly failed at them. So that was really the past life experience. And it was I kind of came out of it. And now looking back, I'm like, I would have kind of then at that point set the intention to maybe kind of go to the afterlife space and kind of maybe discuss with my guides or something like more depth on what the lessons were and maybe get a little bit more insight to those, because I kind of just came out of it after that because I was so taken aback and kind of so shook up from what I had just witnessed, because I knew that was the most visual. I was like, I couldn't have made that up if I tried. And even if I did try, that's not where my mind have gone. I probably would have been like an Irish princess or something if my mind wanted to make up a past life. This was not what I would have gone for. And so I just knew instantly, like, this was the most real, visceral, definitely not something I made up past life. And I was just so shocked and kind of taking it in. Anyway, so that's a perfect example. And I have reflected on that so much, and I've talked about that life with people and kind of what I think might be the kind of takeaways or how it could be impacting me in this life. Honestly, I should probably meditate on it a little bit more. But really, from what I have gathered and what I do understand, what I'm currently taking from that past life is this idea of, in that life, I was carrying a lot of emotional weight for other people and a lot of responsibility for other people. And I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. And at the same time, it was all out of my control. Like, I couldn't have really protected these people anyway. The things played out as they played out, and I couldn't do anything differently, really. And so, like, in this lifetime, the way that can wound, the way that can show up in a wounding is that I'm carrying things for other people that aren't mine to carry. I am used to, and I did do this also in this lifetime, and I have done this, and I am unworking this pattern now, but basically feeling responsible for other people's emotions, other people's pain, other people's experience, especially in ways that are not in my control, that I cannot control. They're not my emotions or responsibility to show up for all of these things, to carry all of this for other people. And not only do I not need to, I shouldn't. And I'm not talking about like taking care of my own children or anything like that. I mean, carrying emotions, basically, in this lifetime particularly, like being the parentified child, understanding now that that's not my job. As a child, I carried things that were not mine to carry because I was surviving. But now I need to recognize that I can let go of that. That emotionally, all of those wounds that show up from my childhood or from past lives, I need to recognize and see on a soul level, those aren't mine to carry. I'm going to let go of those. I'm going to heal those wounds and recognize that I don't have to show up and carry any of that for anybody but me. And as I just think that and recognize that on a soul level, that is healing those wounds. That releases a lot of that baggage from my childhood and from other lifetimes just by seeing it and observing it. And that right there is the entire point of tapping into your past lives. Getting to heal those wounds so that you can continue evolving without all that baggage. That's the point. That's why you want to tap into it. That's what it can do. All right, let me tap into the second one because now the podcast is getting longer and I feel like I haven't even gotten to so many points. The second past life was actually during that past life regression. And now this was just a small portion of it in this past life session that I had with her. We went into a past life, but then we also just connected with my higher self and I asked a whole bunch of questions about my current life and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of times these past lives will bring lessons that you need to learn in this lifetime. And so for me, this was what came through. Now stick with me. This one was wild. And even while I was seeing it, I was like, am I making this up? is this real? Because it was so out of like left field. It was so wild to witness. I was like, am I sure? Like, I was questioning myself as it was happening. But then by the end of it, it all made sense. And I was like, okay. And that is part of meditating and seeing these past lives, is being able to trust what you're seeing, because your human mind, and especially for most of us who have been, who have lived this life where none of this stuff was real, right? We didn't believe in any of this. So it's really hard for your brain a lot of times to actually wrap your mind around it and to actually accept the fact that like, no, this was real and this happened and there's a lesson. And okay, so just bear with me. This is what I saw. I go into this past life, I'm meditating, I'm in this deep space with this practitioner, and she's asking me like, okay, she gets me into the meditation, gets me into where I'm opening my eyes. And she's like, all right, look around, open your eyes. What do you see? And it was wild. But what I see is that I'm on, like, it looks like a desert. But again, instantly, I just know, without having to see too much more, I just know it's not Earth. I'm like, I'm on a planet. It looks like a lot of just like red dirt. I don't know if it's Mars. I don't know where the heck I am. I just instantly know I'm not on Earth. I'm on some other planet, and it's very dusty. It's like this red orange dirt, rocks. But it's very like, it looks like a desert. Rocks, boulders. It's barren. There's no greenery. There's no plants. It's just like this deserted land. And she's like, okay, look down. Do you see your body? Do you feel a body at all? If you do, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And I was really struggling at first because I was like, surely this isn't what I'm seeing, right? Am I sure? But I just went with it, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to tell you intuitively what I'm seeing, because that's what I'm seeing, and I'm just going to go with it. And that's kind of the lesson in these past lives, is just go with it. There's no harm in just going with it and trusting your intuition. So bear with me. But what I saw was, essentially, it was like an alien. I had this orangish brown, again, almost the same color as the dirt, this reddish orange skin. I recognized that I had this sort of suit on, and then I had these 3 like claws on either hand. I'm like, as I'm telling you this, I'm having this feeling like I can't believe I'm saying this on this podcast, because I know that there are people in my life that if I didn't know they were listening to this and they listened to this, they would be like, what the hell are you on? But thankfully, the people that are absolutely closest to me in my life have heard this story and know this, and are totally on the same page and are with me. But if you're not, I understand, because it was crazy when I was actually going through it. But I had these 3 claws, and they was like these 3 big fingers, almost like cat claws, that had a claw on the end, and it was just 3 fingers. It was wild looking. I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing. And I had on a suit, like a space suit almost. And I kind of recognized that I had this alien looking head. And I couldn't make out the features very well, just that it was this like bald alien head, no hair, this like skin that was almost like, I don't want to say like reptilian, but like not human skin, but didn't have hair or anything. I don't know. Scaly almost. It was weird. Of course, this is weird. This whole thing is weird, but this is what I saw. And so she's asking me questions. She's like, okay, like look around. What else do you see? How did you get there? Are you alone? Is there anybody with you? And what I saw was that there was this spaceship, this triangular spaceship. And on the ship were like 2 other beings that looked like me, that were dressed like me. We weren't talking. I wasn't interacting with these beings. I just noticed them. And it was very like, there wasn't much emotion happening. I just knew instantly, I'm looking around this ship. I can see and sense that, okay, I think I was in charge. I was kind of leading this small group of us on this mission that we were on, and we were on this planet, and I understood that we were looking for someone or something, some beings. I don't know. We were exploring. We were looking for something. We were on this mission. It didn't feel like life or death. It just felt like we're here. We're just looking for something. We're doing our job, essentially. It was very simple and straightforward. And I was in charge of getting us there on the ship. I was kind of leading this mission. I had gotten off the ship, and I was looking around, looking for whatever we were looking for. I don't even feel like I found what we were looking for. I just knew that that was the task at hand. And that was it. And she was like, do you feel anything? And I'm like, nope. I just kind of felt like I'm just doing my job. This is just what I'm here to do. I'm just fulfilling the task I'm supposed to fulfill. No big deal. She's like, okay. And so she guides me toward like another important moment in that lifetime. And so I kind of go back into the meditative state and move forward to an important moment. And in that moment, again, I'm still this alien. I'm still in this suit, same body, but I am at this like transportation base. It's still so wild to say it out loud. It's weird, but I was at this transportation base, and kind of what I saw and what I understood was that there was all these different types of beings that didn't look like me at all. It was like all sorts of different species, beings, whatever. And we were at this transportation base, almost like an alien train station is like the best way I can describe it, where everybody is just coming and going, and there's different like ships, and there's like portals, and I don't even know how to explain what I was seeing, but I just had this understanding. Again, my understanding was that I was working. This was my job. My job was to help these beings kind of get to and fro. I'm just kind of helping people, beings, whatever, get where they're supposed to go. And that was it. And it was just like a normal day at work. And she's like, it was kind of funny because she's like asking me all these questions like, okay, like, what are you feeling? What are you doing? Like, what's the event? Like, we're looking for like something that might be impacting me in this lifetime, because this was the lifetime that my higher self had chosen to show me out of all the lifetimes, because we only tapped into one. And out of all the lifetimes, this was the one that came up. And so we're trying to figure out like, well, okay, what did I learn? What was the thing that's impacting me? So she's asking me all these questions, and I'm like, I just don't see anything. Like, there is no event. This is like a normal day at the office. This is so funny. But that's what it was. And she was like, okay, let's go to the last day of this lifetime. This is so wild. And I'm like, okay, let's go to the last day. And the last day of this life was weird, because it was like it's not that I was dying, it's that I chose to go. It was like I had this understanding that, okay, my time's up here, it's time to go. And I was kind of in some sort of room that was like some sort of meeting room. I felt like I was meeting with some sort of leader. It felt like my boss or some sort of like older, wiser figure, same species as me. And I'm talking to this being, and I don't hear a conversation. I don't hear words. I just understand the conversation that's happening and what was communicated. And the communication was like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm ready. I knew that I was reincarnating, and I knew I'm done here. I'm ready to go reincarnate somewhere else. Like, I'm ready to go back to my soul and have a different reincarnation doing something else. And I was just having this conversation with like my boss, I guess. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. What makes you feel like you're ready to move on? And I was just like, I just feel like I'm done here. I've done what I needed to do. My job is done. My task is up. I'm ready to move on. And like, that's really all that I understood. And so she's really trying to get more information. So she's asking me questions. And so I'm in this deep meditative state, and I'm talking to her. I guess I didn't really explain that, but she's asking me questions, and I'm talking to her while I'm in this meditative state. And it's not like you're in a trance. I should say that. It's very much like I was very aware. Like, I could have opened my eyes, and at one point I stopped it, during the meditation later, and I was like, I have to go to the bathroom or whatever, but and then I go back into it. So it's not like you're in a trance where you just have no idea what is happening. At least for me, it wasn't. I was very aware. I was just in a deep meditative state. So I was awake talking to her, but it's kind of like a really vivid dream while you're awake, which is why it takes practice, and why she has you practice so much to get into that state before you even meet with her, is because you have to be able to really get into that state. Okay. So anyway, I'm telling her this, and she's like trying her best to get more information, because I feel like I'm just not giving her anything. And she's like, okay, like, what happens when you die? What happens to your body? How does this work? And I was like, genuinely, I don't know. It feels like I just leave my body. Like I'm not getting killed. I'm just kind of like deciding, setting the intention to leave my body, and I just do. And then my body just stays there, and it's like this very simple, non-emotional process. And so anyways, to speed this up a little bit, I get out of that lifetime and she's, asking me questions to my higher self with my guides, kind of like, okay, that was weird. Wasn't very emotional. What was she supposed to learn? Like, what was the point of that life? And why did you show her this life out of all the lives that you could have tapped into? And instantly, the message that I got, and this is when it all made sense, was that the reason that this life came forward was because this life was a very non-emotional, like task-based life. This lifetime was like a rest, like a little break. It was a lifetime where I just had duties to fulfill, but I didn't really have much emotion. I had a break from the emotion. And the reason that my soul wanted me to see that past life and tap into that was because in my current lifetime, I'm very sensitive. I'm very empathic. I pick up on a lot of energies around me, and I tend to feel everything really deeply and viscerally, even when I don't want to. And it can be very frustrating for me. And so the message that came through was that in that lifetime, you didn't have much emotion. You just kind of went through it doing what you needed to do, but you didn't learn anything. Not that you didn't learn anything, but you didn't learn much because you didn't have emotions and difficult emotional processes to work through. You just kind of got in, got out, did what you needed to do, and you might have learned something, but it really wasn't a super impactful lifetime because you didn't have emotions. And the lesson was that in this lifetime, as Avery, when you're very emotional and sometimes you resent it, what they wanted me to understand was that the reason I have these emotions and why it's so important is because I'm learning so much. That's why we come to Earth. That's why we do these incarnations here that are so hard. And we endure the suffering and we go through the things. And as hard as it is, we're learning and we're growing and evolving so much in these lifetimes on Earth. And that was the lesson, was that Avery resents that emotion sometimes. Avery feels like, why am I so sensitive? I feel everything so deeply. Why? Is this really necessary? Do I really have to suffer? Do I really have to feel everything like this so much? And the lesson that my soul was trying to tell me was, you're learning and growing so much in this lifetime. In that other lifetime where you didn't have all those emotions and you were just doing tasks and everything was fine, you didn't learn anything. And so, yeah, you kind of got a break. Your soul kind of took a respite, and had that life. You went in, you did some cool stuff, but you didn't grow that much. And in this lifetime, we want you to appreciate your emotions because they're helping your soul grow and evolve. And that is doing so much for your soul's overall expansion and journey. And that was so mind-blowing. And so that was such a cool lesson to come out of it with, was like, whoa, okay. And going back to that life as a Native American, again, it was rough. It was awful. The emotions were deep and difficult. But wow, I also learned a lot from it, right? And there's probably way more in that I haven't even tapped into. But just understanding that what we take from these past lives affects us now, and what we're learning now affects us in the future. That is such an opportunity to tap into, to be able to experience growth in this lifetime. And this episode is going a lot longer than I meant for it to, so I want to kind of get into these other topics really quickly. But those experiences were important for me to share because they are very personable and kind of personable. They're very personal and kind of vulnerable for me to share in a public space because it does feel so crazy if you're not familiar with that idea. But now, from my current perspective, I'm so thankful that I was able to tap into those, because they really have helped me kind of anchor in some lessons for this lifetime that are helping me now make different choices moving forward in my now lifetime, like not holding on to other people's emotions, not carrying things for other people, and not resenting my emotions, allowing myself to feel deeply and understanding why that's important and understanding how to process my emotions better. I'm learning all of that, and I'm learning it more wholly because I understand these things from these past lives. And so that's kind of the point. That's the whole thing, the importance of getting to learn that. So, as part of this episode, something that I'm doing is I have put together a past life meditation guide. So, it's a small video for you to be able to tap into a past life or to start practicing tapping into a past life, because maybe you won't do it on the first time. Maybe it'll take some practice to really get into this space. But I wanted to put together something that will help you guys get to this same space, because it's helped me so much and I think it's so important. And so it's basically a guide where it's a PDF and a video together, like a bundle that helps you get into that space, get into your own meditative space where you can tap into this past life, how to do it, what to expect, what that looks like, giving you lots of time. And so, because I tried out a lot of different past life videos, and some of them were really helpful and some of them were really frustrating. And so I put one together that I would find most helpful to help you guys hopefully be able to access this for yourselves. So I'm going to have that linked in the show notes. It's completely free, just for you to do this on your own if that's something that you would like to attempt. So that will be on my website as well, but that is there for you to access. I want to talk about real quick, basically also just some things to look for that might kind of clue you in and maybe help you kind of connect some dots for possible past lives you may have had. Things like feeling drawn to certain countries or cultures. Like, for example, I have always had this just complete fascination with Japan and Japanese culture. I feel really drawn to rural Japan and that whole culture and their history. And I just think it's fascinating. And I'm drawn to other countries as well and other cultures, but that one is one that's just I don't have any personal attachment or connection to Japan. I just love it. And so that's something, and I'm pretty sure I have had a past life in Japan, and I'm not going to go into that right now, but that would be a clue. If you just have a lot of curiosity about a certain culture or certain people group or certain things, maybe being particularly good at something, like maybe you have this gift or this random talent that nobody else in your family has, and you were just born, maybe you're a music prodigy, or maybe you just whatever, it could be anything. But that any kind of weird talent or something that you're good at, maybe you just love to cook. All of those things can be tied to past lives. On that same note, feeling drawn or curious about certain career paths or certain interests, hobbies, topics, feeling like you know someone, like if you meet someone, and I've had this experience with certain friends or people where you meet someone and instantly you just click, you just get along, you feel like you have known that person for lifetimes, because maybe you have. And so there's people like that where you just really connect with someone, or maybe people that you just really don't connect with and you have a really hard time with. That can also be past life karmic connections that you're working out in this lifetime. Strong aspects of your personality, whether you're really introverted or extroverted, you're really outspoken, you really internalize things, or you're very external with your thoughts. All of those things can have ties to past lives. Features even on your body or facial features, scars, marks on your body, facial features, hair, anything like that, like scars or beauty marks, those can all have past life ties. Again, like I said, unexplained fears or phobias, that's a big one. And also, yeah, like I said already, but not liking certain people or having a really hard time with certain people or certain maybe cultures or groups of people, feeling like you have wounds with certain people groups, or maybe races, anything like that. It could be from this lifetime. It could be from past lifetimes that you're still trying to work out in this lifetime. So all of those things are just things to be aware of that could point you in the direction of possible experiences that you have had or interacted with. Any sort of even beliefs or mindsets that you have in this lifetime can have past life ties. So it could be literally anything, but it's always worth exploring and thinking about, what do you have going on in this life that could be connected to a past life? And is there a wound or an obstacle that you could potentially heal that maybe you've never really been able to figure out? Maybe it's difficult, maybe it's complicated, maybe it's just really deep, you don't understand it. It could be something that you need to heal specifically through a past life, just by recognizing and tapping into that past life, by understanding it and looking at it, you can heal those things. Because every lifetime that you have lived carries themes, right? So like in that Native American lifetime, the theme was like failure and shame and carrying things for other people, carrying burdens for others that I had no control over. Like that was a theme that I clearly came out of that lifetime with. But, it could be leadership. The theme could be compassion. The theme can be betrayal. The theme can be love, power, service, creativity. There's all sorts of things that can happen in a lifetime that they often just carry these patterns that show up in other lives. It's like there's still these strings, these cords that are connected lifetime to lifetime. And if they are wounds, then those are strings and cords you need to cut and to heal to be able to move on from that lesson. And basically becoming aware of those past life patterns is helping you reclaim power in this lifetime and heal emotional wounds, step into deeper self-mastery. And you can do that, again, through meditation on your own, through working with a practitioner like I did. You can also, I believe, heal some of that without being aware of the past life, but just by learning certain lessons in this lifetime. Again, going back to that soul contract and life lessons episode, it's all connected. You are not just a product of your childhood in this lifetime, of your current culture, of your current circumstances. You are like an ancient traveler, a collector of stories. You are a soul who has been through multiple lifetimes and cultures and situations. And you are an embodiment of all of that, which is why it's so insane that as humans, we have these prejudices and these biases and these judgments against each other or other people groups. It's crazy because we are not just this one lifetime in this one body, this one culture, this one skin color. We have all experienced and will experience so many different perspectives. And that is the whole point, is to get every sort of different kind of perspective we can get, to learn as much as we can learn by reflecting each other back and forth. And so all of these judgments that we make on each other against other people, we're really just judging ourselves. We're reflecting it back to us because we take turns being all these different perspectives and having all these different experiences, each stepping into the shoes of every other type of person. So if that's not a reminder to have compassion and respect for other people, then I don't know what is. All that to say, honor the life you're living now, because what you are weaving together in this lifetime will affect you in future lifetimes, will affect your past lifetimes, and it affects your soul, most importantly. All right, this episode is getting a little bit lengthy, so I'm going to go ahead and end it. I hope that this episode was helpful for you. I know we went deep. I know we got off our rockers a little bit. I know it was a little bit crazy. Thank you for sticking with me, for hearing me out, for listening to my stories. Don't forget to check out the free guided meditation for past lives. I hope that you guys are able to do something like this to tap into some of your own past lives yourselves. It's such a fascinating experience. Again, if you have any personal questions that you would like to take one of these slots to get a free psychic reading from me before I launch it as a paid service, please go ahead and do that. Email me at daremetoprosper@gmail.com with 2 or 3 questions, your name, a simple explanation of, kind of what your situation is. Don't forget to leave a review if you have not already. I very much appreciate it. And until next time, thank you for listening to Dare Me to Prosper.